Hello everyone, this is Julia. Thank you so much for joining me on my craft room adventures, and today I'm back with day 10 of my 2020 holiday card series. Today I'm using the adorable hot cocoa stand and the tiny tree stamp set by Avery Elle. These are just so adorable, and I knew as soon as I saw them that I wanted to combine them to have a little hot cocoa party, which I think is just so fun. So I'm just using my Copic markers on some perfect coloring paper by Transotype, and I'm just using G46, I'm sorry, as my darkest shade, blending that out with G24. Just adding little flicks, and I'm also using the same shades on the little Christmas ornaments and also on the garland. Blending that out with G21. And using the G20 as my lightest shade. Again, going back in with a G21 because on the garland it was just a little bit too light. Going back in with lots of flicks of the G46 again on the Christmas trees just to add a little bit more definition there. And I'm also adding some dot details on the garland. For the hot cocoa stand, I wanted to use some warm grays. So I'm starting off by with W5. I didn't want it to be too dark, so the W5 was just the right shade to start off with. Just laying in my shadows, and I attempted to create some sort of wood grain pattern, so I just added lots of flicks from each side to create some movement there so that it wouldn't be just flat. Still need to practice a lot of those techniques, but yeah, I do like how it turned out, so it was fine. Just adding more and more flicks of the W5, then going back in to add a few more flicks, then starting to blend those out with W3. Just adding more flicks over top, just to soften them up a bit, but trying to leave the movement detail in there. Then going in with W1, just roughly going over all of the areas just to get them slightly blended. And for the stand, the two side pieces, I just added a bit more of the W3 and also W1. And now I'm just blending everything together with W0. For my penguin, I wanted to use the same sort of shade so that it would match the card. So I started off a little bit darker with a W7, and then going in with W5 and W3. And using the W1 as my lightest shade for the main body. I didn't want him to be too dark. Going back in for a second layer. And I'm using the W0 and 00 on the belly and face. And just some YR23 for the beak and the feet. I'm using Y28, YR23, Y15 and Y11 as a gold shade combination on the Christmas lights and also on the star. And then I just colored the base pieces for the Christmas lights with the W7. For my bear, I'm using E55, and I'm also coloring the little individual paws, which I think is just super cute. Then I wanted it to be a bit darker, so I'm bringing in E57. Then going in again with the E55. Then E53 to blend out those edges. I forgot to pause there for a second. Then going in with E51 and blending everything together. Also colored in the nose with the E57. And now I'm just bringing in a second layer of the E55. Blending out again with E53. And then with E51. I'm using the same kind of shades for my bear, but I wanted him to be a lot lighter. So I'm skipping the E57 and the E55. And I'm just using E53 as my darkest shade. And I'm blending that out with E51. And then going in with E50. Going in for a second layer just to add a little bit more depth with E53. Then again going back in with E51 to smooth out the edges. And then finally blending everything together with E50. And the ornaments they're holding, I just used some scissors after I cut them out to basically just cut them off because I added mugs there so you wouldn't see it. Again, I still need to label my Copic markers. I'm just using E35 for the reindeer as my darkest shade. Blending that out with E33. Then E31. And using E30 as my highlight shade. Also colored in the belly and mouth area and also the antlers with E30. And I'm just using E37 and E35 for the hooves. Going back in with E30 a second time just for a little bit more definition. For my reds, I'm using R89, R39, and R29, just for a really deep, rich red combo. And I used the same shades on the scarves, the presents, and also on the mugs. And then I wanted to bring in a different red shade. So I'm using R30 markers. So I'm using R37, R35, R32, and R30 as the highlight shade. So it's still, you know, it matches the other red, but it just brings a little bit more of a lighter tone there. And then for my blues, I'm using BG 00, triple zero, I'm sorry, and then BG01. Just the two shades because the images I'm coloring are really small. And I also use the same shades on the tiny little blue bird, or the tiny bird that I colored like a bluebird in the tiny tree stamp set, which is just so adorable. It's just teeny tiny bird. It's so cute. And then I cut down a panel of Bristol smooth cardstock. This is sized 8.5 by 4.25. And I'm using Tattered Rose, Worn Lipstick, and Abandoned Coral for like a warmy pink sky. I didn't quite know how to get the color that I wanted, but I just grabbed the shades that I thought would get me there most likely. So I just used a tiny little bit of the Abandoned Coral, not a lot, because I didn't want the sky to be red. I wanted it still to be pink, or like pinkish. So I'm just going over that with the Worn Lipstick, blending the colors back and forth, and then I realized that the transition between the Tattered Rose and the Worn Lipstick just really wasn't my cup of tea. So I just stuck with the top part for now, just blending the colors back and forth until they're smooth. And now I'm also blending in the Tattered Rose some more, trying to get a nice transition, but it really wasn't the kind of shade that I was looking for. So now I'm just bringing in the Spun Sugar, going over the areas where I already added the Tattered Rose, and those two in combination actually created the exact shade that I needed to blend that out, because the Spun Sugar on its own would have been too pink and the Tattered Rose was too like warm muted colored, but the two together look great. I really love this color combination. And I'm just blending the colors back and forth until I'm happy with the result, not worrying about the bottom part because that will be covered by a hill. And this is the hill that I was talking about. I just die cut it with some slimline border dies, and I'm using the tumbled glass and Broken China Distress Oxide ink just on the top to add a little bit of definition, and then making sure they look nice together. And then I also added some shimmer spritz on the panel, just for some added shine. I'm adding lots of splatters of the liquid pixie dust, or liquid stardust, I'm sorry, by L'Enfant. Just diluted down with some water. And now I'm also adding some Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White, just thinned out with some water to add lots of snowy splatters on that background. For sentiment, I decided to use the Warm Holiday Hugs by Mama Elephant from the Scripty Christmas or Scripty Xmas, because that was just the perfect size to fit up there. And I'm using some Ranger Superfine Detail Silver Embossing Powder. And I'm just running my heat tool that was already heated up over the embossing powder until it's smooth and shiny. I just cut down a red card front and I adhered it to a white card base. And now I'm just using liquid glue to adhere my panel. I just really wanted it to have like some sort of matting to add a little bit more interest. So I just cut down the Ink Planet panel by 1/4 of an inch on either side, or on like the side and the top. And I'm just using liquid glue to add it down, so I have an 1/8 of an inch border around the entire panel. Now I'm also adding in the hill using liquid glue because I knew that the scene I was going to put in front was quite busy. Now I'm just adhering all the pieces for the hot cocoa stand using liquid glue. Just adding the Christmas lights behind my bear. Then I also added the mug. I added the paws, but I ended up removing them, then adding in the garland and then adding the paws with foam tape, just so that they stand out more, otherwise the garland would have covered them up. First I added the hot cocoa cup on the outside, but then I realized that it really would have to be inside, so I just removed it again and added it to the inside of my booth. And I also added I cut off, like I said, the Christmas ornaments that the critters were holding, and I'm just adding the holiday cups. I did use some mirror stamping to get one cup that is facing the other direction, the blue one that I'm using here, or was it the red? I'm not sure. I did stamp a few of them with a mirror image stamp by Whimsy Stamp, just to get them facing the other direction so that they would match. And here, like I said, I just added the paws with some foam tape. Here's the little bluebird, but I wasn't sure how to place him, so I just added the hot cocoa stand a little bit to the left, then the reindeer, and then I added my bluebird, so it looks like the reindeer is giving a little bit of hot cocoa to the reindeer, which I think is just so cute. Then I'm just adding the Christmas trees just around the panel with some liquid glue, just stuck behind the hill panel. And if I'd thought of that before, I wouldn't have added liquid glue to the top of the hill, but I did. So I just used some scissors to sort of pull it up, and I just cut off that little, what is it called? The like base of the tree, just in the shape of the hill, and I just glued that down flat. Added lots of foam tapes to all of the images and then adhered them. And now it's time to use lots of embellishments as usual. So I'm just using the Nuvo Aqua Shimmer Pen in Glitter Gloss. Just running that over all of the bows, the mugs, the accessories of the critters, and the Christmas lights, of course. Then I'm going in with Nuvo Crystal Glaze over the ornaments. And as you can see, I already placed down some stars in the background, but I wasn't really happy with it, so I ended up using different ones. But for now, I'm just using the Liquid Stardust by Liquid Stardust Stickles on all of the snow elements, and also on some of the accessories of the critters. Then I also added some to the trees, and as you can see, I had to squeeze out a little bit more because I'm running low. Really need to pick up more Stardust Stickles because I'm totally obsessed with them. And now I'm just using the little iridescent stars by Little Things by Lucy, just scattered around the background for some added shine. And that finishes my card for today. I had so much fun making this. Those critters are just the cutest, and I can just see them having such an amazing time, just having a hot cocoa party and just celebrating the season, sharing hot cocoa, and it's just so cute. I absolutely love those. And I really like how the background turned out. I wasn't sure what I wanted, but this is what I was going for. I really hope you like it too. I'm hoping that you're having a great holiday season so far, that you're staying safe and healthy. I will be back tomorrow with a brand new video for my holiday card series. Have an absolutely wonderful day. Bye!